This conference will now be recorded.
All right, Marissa, do you want to introduce her, or should I introduce her, or Brittany, you just want to introduce yourself?
I'll let her kick it off, but I'll just kind of start with, we've worked together on a couple of different things, and I too look at, their company as something of a model for digital marketing too. So
Yeah.
just figured that this actually was going to be a great place for her to kind of talk and then talk a little bit about what they actually do and
Mhm.
kind of just answer some questions. So, but yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let her introduce herself too.
Okay, Brittany, go ahead.
Hi, thanks everybody, and thanks Marissa. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. It's so funny I feel like we are at a place where it's like pre-COVID and post-COVID. Like, we saw each other. I think we had like two events together in 2019, and that just seemed like a lifetime ago. So thank you guys for the invite. I was definitely flattered by what you said. So I'm happy to talk marketing anytime. This has been the meeting of the week I've been looking forward to because most of them aren't as fun as talking about marketing
That's
all
funny.
the time. So, um, just a little bit about me. I am the Senior Director of Marketing for Apple Growth Partners. So we are a accounting and business advisory firm. We do, so one of those post-COVID world scenarios, before COVID, we are still based in Akron. That's where our headquarters is, but we were very, geographically focused on Northeastern Ohio. Since COVID, we have expanded our workforce. We have employees outside of the state of Ohio for the first time, including my marketing manager that I have since hired does not live in Ohio, which is awesome. We have adapted a remote workforce. Some people still go into the office, some people do not. And we have expanded. We've also expanded on our client reach as well. So kind of plays into some of our social media strategy. We are a full service marketing department for the firm. So that means that we handle, I would say, 95% of what we do. The things that we outsource would be any type of probably like a large scale design. So a local reference, if you are in the Cleveland area, we have a pretty massive display at the Cleveland Hopkins Airport. I design it, but I send it out to a professional designer to do like the professional specs. So those would be like some of the things that we outsource, but we primarily do everything in-house, which is social media, website, marketing, outbound, etc. I've been at Apple Growth Partners for 3.5 years. I've spent the majority of my life in marketing, primarily in healthcare. So accounting was certainly a new industry to me. So, but accountants are very much like physicians. So it was easy in terms of talking to your peer and your target audience. So when I came to our firm, they were very much under the assumption that like marketing would just this was again 4 years ago. Marketing was to do folders and to put together PowerPoints. They were very not in the mindset of lead generation or how marketing can help the funnel. So there's been a lot of education over the last several years about leads and websites and all of that fun stuff. So I do think we've done a lot of great work in shifting the understanding of marketing within the firm and what their role is once they get what I have since educated them on a marketing qualified lead. So I think that's just like a general background. And I'm happy to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I think you said social media, is that what you wanted to talk about?
So I want to make sure, get your background a little bit, and then the reason I asked Brittany to speak to us today is one is the accounting profession's been doing marketing way longer than the MSP industry has been doing. And two is what I always tell your owners is that MSPs are professional firms. Like I think sometimes we think of them as being like technical companies, or I think they're more like Cisco, and they're not. Is they're more like accounting firms and they're more like law firms. And I think the buying process and therefore sales process is quite similar. Like, let me ask you one question, Brittany, is this is what I usually ask MSP owners, but the answer might be different in your case. Was I always ask MSP owners how many people hired their accountant because they cold called them, right? And in general, that answer is 0. Right? Maybe in your experience, it's changed. That's not true, but so I think that's one of the reasons too. Is just I paid attention to Apple Growth Partners kind of a little bit before COVID, and certainly through COVID. And I think what you guys just demonstrated was a very professional and consistent and kind of helpful sort of outreach that I'm sure paid off. And I think the third reason, and one thing I want you guys to talk about too, is one thing I want to make sure is in everybody's plan is co-marketing with professional allies, right? And I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but I believe you guys have done co-marketing together or cooperative marketing in a sense, certainly over time. Was that last part's true, correct? But yes.
Yeah,
So,
it's been a while since we've gotten to work, really closely together, but like she said, it's kind of the whole post-COVID world. We'll kind of
yeah,
see where that goes, but
yeah, but
for sure.
there's certainly you could see the benefit of doing it, right? Or at least you've done it in the past. So the one question I might ask you, Brittany, do you guys actually have, I've kind of lost track of this in the accounting industry. Do you guys have salespeople now that work for you?
I'm sorry, you skipped out. Do we have what?
Salespeople, like business development people, or
We do not. So that is an interesting situation because we have our professionals who are in either a principal or a manager, senior manager level role, who we marketing will send leads to. Sometimes it is based off of the industry that they focus on. So whether it's like restaurant owners, car wash owners, managed service providers, IT firms. We have people that specialize in certain industries, but some that we don't. So there has been a lot of that education about, filling in that gap of providing business development service. My team and I have focused the last, I'd say probably year and a half on putting together training of like, here's what marketing does, here's what you do. And like, and because I think when I first started, they were like, oh, you generated website leads, great, call them. And I'm like, you don't want me talking accounting. Like, that's not going to do anybody any favors. So there's been a lot of education to what we marketing will deliver to you and then your responsibility. And that's been a huge shift in our firm, especially with our president, who started almost 2 years ago. And she came from a national global accounting firm, which is called the BDO. Not the, I think it's just called BDO. And they, so she came with a really heavy sales background. So she had also been that champion of marketing and, this is what marketing will do, but you guys have to sell. You're making the sell. So that was very present with our COVID leads. And I say that sounds very insensitive. So like the leads, essentially the businesses that came to our firm to ask for help on the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. And Michael was alluding to, what happened in March of 2020 is, and what everyone experienced it, but what we saw from a business side is massive chaos among business owners. So obviously our firm targets business owners, especially smaller, mid-sized business owners. So business owners were going through just a complete crap storm of what to do, how to change their volumes. And then the government started rolling out the PPP, which was a chaotic process in and of itself. So at that time, I was a single marketing department. I was doing it all. It was nonstop social media. We were doing posts. We were writing blogs. We were doing email updates. There was one day in particular where I think we sent probably 5 emails. We started a massive webinar schedule and campaign there was about a month where we were running a webinar almost every day of the week. So then what we started noticing is we were getting hundreds of people attending our webinars, which was awesome. We were not charging. This information was free to anybody. It was after that, probably in June, July, when I started looking at the numbers, and we essentially did a comparison of the people who attended our webinar that were already clients versus those that did not. And there was a significant percentage of those that attended our webinars who were not clients. So that's when we started pulling this data and saying to principals, to managers, like, hey, it is your responsibility. Start following up. Like, let's get this, this lead process started. So that was really kind of the beginning of this, I would say, total buy-in of, oh, wow, marketing efforts provide leads better than me going to the golf course. And I can't go to the golf course right now.
That's interesting. So can I ask you a question on, so I just wanted also to the group talk about one other commonality is similar to, just so you know, Brittany, in most cases, with the exception actually of AtNetPlus, is the people that show up to do the selling are usually the owner, the owner of the MSP, who is much more like an accounting partner than he or she is like a salesperson. So there's very small commonalities there. But you're bringing me back. So just so the group knows, I actually started my career at Arthur Andersen, and literally was the second person you hired into like the marketing function they had there. And I remembered us, you'd have these partners who would be like literally world-class, like business people in some cases, scared to follow up on direct mail pieces or cold calls or stuff like that. They were like kindergarten children, to pick up the phone and call somebody. And then after maybe one phone call, they got into it. But I think it's another commonality we could probably talk to maybe offline is the need to basically train people how to do sales. Like all of our owners have been through it. So one question I had for you, just kind of structurally. So if you thought about like the categories of like what your marketing plan is, like the different things that you're responsible for. So one we've talked about is obviously social media. Two is webinars and that stuff. What are the just big chunks of things that are in your marketing plan?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So I would say from a priority standpoint, social media, where we spend a lot of our time and effort. Yeah. We spend, I would say now in 2022, we have gone back to better, more significant email campaign. 2 years ago, obviously that was not the case. Webinars would have been number two. Our webinar volume has died down a little bit. We still do them, but not at the frequency as we were doing 2 years ago. But that tool is still there and it's available for our principals. We're on a fiscal year. Our year will end June 30th. So my marketing budget will reset July 1st. And including my marketing plan will reset July 1st. We are anticipating for the next fiscal year to bring back more webinars. At this point, it's not so much that they're not effective, it's more so that we just don't have the bandwidth from the principal side, like the subject matter expert side, to run content. So we need to set the proper expectations of, if we have an in-house expert at this type of specialty, then you have to give X number of webinars a year. So we'll get there. So I would say number one is social media. Number two is our email campaign. Number three, I would say, is our content. So we have a pretty robust blog and ebook portfolio of great content from our professionals in a variety of areas. We are also pushing downloads. That's a great lead generator for us. So people downloading our ebooks, that type of content from our website and within LinkedIn ad campaigns. And then I would say for this year, number four, we just recently rolled out, and this is probably something that the MSP industry had been doing already, but we just started doing bookings with some of our departments and rolling out online scheduling. Last year, and even again in the 2020, we were running a podcast. Our podcast really died down. I think there's a lot of factors that are involved in that.
Mhm.
We were one of the first people in our like local area of businesses to have a podcast in I want to say 2019 is when we launched it. Um, we took our podcast virtual when COVID happened. The problem started with our virtual guests just not paying attention to the very detailed sound requirement that we would send them. So
Mhm.
it just came to a point where we're like, it's not good. Like we can't air these episodes. And um, so we kind of put it to rest for a while. We might bring our podcast back under very stricter circumstances.
Okay.
Um, but we took it virtual, which was great. Like we were able to adapt it. But towards, even as remote work became more prevalent, the set people still were just not
Mhm.
paying attention to the sound requirement that we would send them. And we had somebody that was in a room with like a fan on. We asked them to turn the fan off. They were like, "No, I'm too hot," and oh, it was bad. so
That-
so our podcast has really kind of taken a back burner. So those are our primary strategies.
yeah.
Our social media is a really important component. It never was prior to me, and I'm not contributing that to me. I'm just saying I think that's part of how our firm viewed marketing. Marketing wasn't necessarily there to do exposure. And once we started having that dialogue of the benefits of marketing, what would happen is, before COVID, our people would be going out to events and then they would have people come up to them and say, "Oh, I see you guys on social media all the time." Then when COVID hit and everybody went home, we already had a pretty well established social media realm. So pushing
Mhm.
out content, especially related to the PPP, we were already there. Um,
Mhm.
and
Can I ask you a question, Brittany? Did
of course,
you,
oh, of
in the
course.
social media aspect, do you handle both the company posting as well as like the subject matter experts posting for them as well? Do you post for the
That's a
subject matter
great
experts?
question. So we manage all of our firm's profiles on social media. Our marketing team, which I now have a team, which is awesome. We will manage. Currently, we are managing two
Yeah.
individual profiles. So we are managing our president's profile and one of our principals. As of literally last month, we published a marketing policy that will provide guidance around if somebody asks marketing to take over a social media profile, they have to meet certain criteria. And then we set guidelines on how we'll do it, why we'll do it. And so it's not just like anybody asking, we can't have like 50 people ask us to manage our social
Yeah.
media at that point. So I do see us moving more towards that. We have also been asking our professionals, like if you are on social media and you are referencing an article for the firm that they might have been the author, tag
Mhm.
the firm. Something so simple, but people still might not do that.
Yeah.
So,
I think the two things pop in my mind. I just want the rest of the group to get to is the other thing about the accounting firm industry is when they say subject matter expert content, it is actually content. It's not necessarily promotion of any sort. So it is things like white papers or you know, demonstrating expertise in a subject that's relevant to people. So if you get a chance to look at their content, it's not the same as MSP content is awfully, which is but we want to move our group towards actually having value add content. I think the second thing you said that I wanted people to get was even though at the height webinars went through kind of a weird cycle, but I honestly think that it's still a good way to get business, particularly if you do it with somebody else, And I was just curious, Brianna, I know you guys done a lot of webinars. Which was the one that got you the most business, do you think?
I don't have a clear answer for you on that. I'd have to like go back and look, but I will say that at the beginning of COVID, when everything first went virtual, we had a lot better engagement, a lot more people were interested in that kind of stuff. Obviously,
Yeah.
being an MSP, we got to play the hey, how are you securing everyone? Because there was like a strong
Yeah,
need for people to not be in the office. So
legitimate need for that. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I'd say if I had to like guess, it would be one of the webinars that we did right at the beginning of COVID
Yeah,
when
I agree
remote
too.
work was. Yeah, and the other thing too is that kind of worked for us because we had clients that was something relevant to even our own clients who were
Mhm.
interested in seeing how we were doing it, and
Yeah.
externally how businesses would make that move.
I remember. So this is another history lesson from the accounting industry, Brittany. So if you look at all the big accounting firms, like the Big Four, when they first started out, they were actually organized by a geographic region. So like the Cleveland office would be the profit center. And what all of them did, and I think is true in the big outsourcing thing, they completely changed their firm and they actually made it the industry the profit center. So for example, the person in charge of banking would have a team that was across the whole country, right? And the reason I mentioned that is I believe industry is becoming equally important to MSPs as being the focus of our marketing. And like, for example, Brianna does a lot of law firms. Mike Sheila's company does architects and all that. And I believe, I don't know if that's as true in the mid-sized kind of accounting firms now, but I think I was just curious how much of your subject matter content is based on kind of industry expertise. Is it most of it? Not a lot of it?
Oh, I'd say a lot of it is,
Mhm.
certainly in the COVID time, I would say it was, oh my God, it was 90%. And
Mhm.
at that time, the nice thing about me being a one-person show is that I truly didn't have to write from scratch, because I
Yeah.
had to take the expertise from the professionals who were, we had a team of individuals on the finance side that read the PPP bill at like midnight the night that it came out, like page for page.
Yeah.
So my contribution was obviously just proofreading, formatting, and then getting the message out.
Mhm.
Now in this post-COVID world, I would say we're probably more in the 50-50, meaning
Yeah.
marketing, my team is writing content based off of an outline. But if it's something that is very specific, that we take that content as it is from the subject matter
Mhm.
expert and we proof it. I have one gentleman on our tax team who is that role for our firm. Is he
Yeah.
is the legislative expert,
Yeah.
and it's great. Like he'll call me, he'll be like, "I have an update from the Senate. I'm going to send you an article," and I'm like, "Awesome! I don't have to do anything. I just have to
Yeah.
proof it and get it out." So there are instances for us, especially on the when it gets into the legislation side, where marketing can't really edit. Now, as we're getting back to some sort of normal, pushing out content or article ideas, that really is kind of swinging back to marketing to remind people, hey, we'll write it. Just give us the topic, give us the outline, and we'll do the writing. And just kind of continuing to promote content.
Okay. And I can ask you another question too. So like if you looked like what's going to be in your plan that's going to get approved on July 1st, right? That one coming up is what do you, let me ask you differently. You talked about the webinars and all that. If you look back in your history of all the stuff you did at Apple Growth, what's the one thing you did that drove the most leads?
The most leads, I would say, is definitely our webinars,
That's what I thought.
and I would say our email campaigns also. So
Yeah.
we're running some campaigns right now too that are, the call to action is either book a call with our
Yeah.
staff member, download our ebooks. We get considerable leads. We also get considerable lead running LinkedIn lead campaigns, not just like sponsored content or follower campaigns.
Yeah.
That's been very beneficial to us. The one thing I personally like about the LinkedIn advertising platform is that, unlike our website,
Mhm.
the lead information can't be skewed. So, if somebody wants to download an ebook on our website, but they don't want us bothering them. They can put in a fake name, phone number, email address, and they still get that content. LinkedIn doesn't allow members to do that. So we have found more valuable MQLs coming from LinkedIn paid campaigns than even our website. And I tell our people that all the time too. The webinars are the same thing. I mean, you could fake your name on a webinar registration form, but you're more likely not to.
So can I ask you two questions? One, can we drill down in the LinkedIn stuff too? Because I've heard both ends, you know, like LinkedIn's a waste of time versus what you just said. So like, could you give an example of a LinkedIn ad campaign that drove leads for you?
Yep.
Like a tangible example, yeah.
I can. So my opinion on the LinkedIn ad platform is that, again, we're looking at pre-COVID, post-COVID world.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, these are my opinion. They're not founded by any logic, but they're my opinion, that two things happened with LinkedIn. One is that their ad platform didn't nearly have the same number of qualifiers or identifiers as it does now. And I think that that was a natural evolution of just getting to be a better ad platform. But I also think that there are so many more LinkedIn users now, or not so much, maybe they were already a user, but more active LinkedIn users. So I think the pandemic forced people to take networking virtual and perhaps make up that time, or perhaps they have more time to search on their phone or play on apps because they're not commuting. So I think those two things at the same time. I was running active LinkedIn lead campaign pre-COVID, and we run them now, and they are drastically different. So I'll give you one example now. We have our July 1st focus is going to revisit car wash owners. And before the pandemic, when we had previously tried to target car wash owners on LinkedIn, they just weren't using that platform. There was some benchmarking materials that we had received from the car wash world that car wash owners were primarily on Facebook. They were on Twitter. They just weren't on LinkedIn. So now we are running a LinkedIn lead campaign targeting people who either have an interest in car wash, which is also sketchy because, you know, you could simply like getting your car washed and you click some type of content on LinkedIn and they tag you as a car wash liker. The stronger asset there is people who have the phrase car wash in their job title or their company name. That provided us a higher audience. And those individuals are served an ad for if they are considering to buy or sell a car wash to download a checklist that we have for M&As. So like an M&A due diligence checklist. They in the last week, I think we've had 8 qualified download with their information, and they are like car wash owners. We ask in the lead form how many bays their car wash has. So it's like a very industry specific question that they to help qualify them. And our principal who's leading this effort is getting in touch with them right away, and had one person write back and say, yeah, I'm doing due diligence right now. As soon as I'm ready, I'm going to contact you for help on this deal. So like, it was like an instant connection. So that one's a great example of a pre-post pandemic online world. LinkedIn still has its issues, don't get me wrong. But that to me, my personal opinion is that's a better ad platform than the Facebook ad platform.
I was going to ask you a question. So I'm a little distance in my deep recollection of LinkedIn, but so you can, what I remember correctly is you can set up kind of on one of their standard kind of database forms, right? You just tell them who you want to go after, basically. My recollection was that in LinkedIn, you had like 3 options. You had, and 2 I can remember. One was that you could have the ad show up. So when they get on LinkedIn, the ad shows up in the right-hand side of their screen, right? I think a second option though was, maybe it's the second 2 options of having something actually in-mailed to the person that looked like the ad, right? And then I can't remember what the third action is. Did you do the ad that shows up on the right or the ad that got actually in-mailed to people?
So there's, you are correct. They actually have a lot more options now because
Okay.
they have like a carousel ad, they have a sponsored content ad, like they have a variety of different ones.
Yep.
We've done almost all of them. The one that you mentioned that show up on the right, that is truly for desktop only. Those aren't delivered on
Yep.
mobile
Gotcha.
views. Most of the people that go on our website are desktop users because they're at work,
Yeah.
whereas
Good point.
they're not necessarily on their phone. So we have done that. Those are good for like followers. Those are good to get people to follow the company
Okay.
page.
Yeah.
The in-mail that you mentioned, so this again is more so my opinion than any type of data. We did in-mail campaigns before the pandemic with our department that focuses with attorneys, like getting referrals from attorneys. And it was relatively successful. The principal essentially has to allow Apple Growth Partners to advertise as him. So we
Yeah.
are able to send the email from this person's name. It doesn't come from their LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
Now, we have actually yet to do another in-mail campaign, primarily because if you guys are like me, your in-mails are junk. Like it's full of crap. And I get it every single day. And what our staff members are telling us is that their in-mails are full of recruiters.
Mhm.
So like our recruitment team, which marketing also does support, our recruitment team is having a hard time getting in people's inboxes, like for the exact same reason. So
Mhm.
we just haven't gone back to in-mail yet. I fault LinkedIn for that because it's just crap. Like my inbox is full of people, or the worst in my opinion is when you get like a connection request and then
Yeah.
it's an
So it's
immediate
promo. Yeah.
message in your inbox. And it's like that's so disingenuous. Like
Yeah.
I have no interest in that. So we just haven't gone back to that.
So in the one that was for the car wash owners, which
So that was a single image ad that
okay.
has a call to action button under it that says download. And then to download the content, there's a form
So I like
that
that.
automatically will populate their information.
I like that
And
a
then,
lot.
mhm,
And
and then
where does that show? Was that showing up on their was that showing up on their as an ad in their feed basically then?
yeah, so it shows up as it essentially looks
Okay.
like a post to them, and then they can click it to download the content.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds almost like TikTok-y to me. It actually sounds pretty good. So it's like
It's
I just
better than TikTok.
I discovered TikTok like 3 weeks ago. So
Oh no,
I'm learning. Yes.
Michael, don't get too deep in it.
I know.
I've avoided TikTok. I know what TikTok is. I avoid it because all my friends say it's very addictive.
It's
And I'm
very
like, I don't
devastating.
need one more addictive thing in my life. But I do have a question for you. Well, okay, wait, it kind of disappeared now with the TikTok.
Sorry.
No, for that form, Brittany, you said that LinkedIn has an option where you can even pre-populate. So then you're like the person only really has to click download and then submit, really, because it already. That's really nice. Okay, because
Correct. Yeah.
the less they have to click, the better, for sure. That is a really
Yeah.
nice.
And they also can't change it, which is even better because then it's like it's their true information.
Ooh, that is even better. Okay, good to know. I didn't realize we haven't done a whole lot of LinkedIn advertising over the last year. We focused
Right.
primarily on Google ads, but I know that LinkedIn is where we have thought about going. And so thank you I'm going to have to figure out how to make that happen because we do
Yeah.
gate all of our content the same way, but if people feel like they have to type in, it's the difference of getting down to that third line that they have to type in, and then they might decide suddenly you don't want the content that bad. So good to know.
Yeah, and I like the whole aspect of it too, right? Where you're very targeted in who you're going after. All the materials were actually written to be industry specific and value oriented that way. And third is you aren't trying to get like a sales call right off the bat. You're giving some kind of value added content that they can download. Yeah, I'd like to see the MSP industry more. I think go ahead.
I did have a question just, I guess, to pose to the group because Brian and I have been talking about it too, is, a lot of the content that we'd love to share is like, we do a lot of great ransomware work. nobody wants to talk about the fact that their company got ransomware, right? So it's like there's this level of where we can highlight where we do really well tends to be sometimes where there are shortcomings on our customer side beforehand. And so sometimes trying to get case studies or any of the like really meaningful content for other business owners is difficult. And so I was wondering if anyone, we wrote into one of our new onboarding contracts is that we'll do an evaluation at the end of the first 90 days of being a customer, just so that we it actually kind of works to hold both parties accountable. But I was wondering if anyone else in the group has another way that you go about asking for that type of content, if you do it anonymous, post about it kind of anonymously.
I'd be curious what Brittany does, because in the old days, when and I'll let everybody else answer this. In the old days, if it was sensitive, we would just do a disguised case study, right? Where it's almost like a company that, without naming the company, but it would be accurate to the facts. But I'm curious, Brittany, what do you guys do? Because you have sensitive areas too, obviously, like bankruptcy and all stuff like that.
We do. And you are right. It's like people don't want to admit that they were, a ransomware. We have that come up with, we have a team of people that work on the sale of businesses, and some people are very particular about not disclosing that. They don't want to disclose the dollar amount, even though the experience went really well and really smooth. They just don't really like having their competitors learn about it. And I think that there's some, perhaps some emotion there too. Like, I don't want to admit defeat. I had to sell my business, which isn't the case, but it's just, a psychological aspect of it. So we have done that before. So we do what we call ghosted content, where we will describe the scenario. So a business, a factory with more than 200 employees that specializes in an industry leading product decided to sell, and we ghost it, and we don't put any type of qualifier information on it. That was also a lot more prevalent when I worked in healthcare. That's a big thing in healthcare when we write content, is a lot of hospitals do not want people to know that they have staffing issues. So we write it the same way. A healthcare facility located in the southeast region, so you're still providing some type of context, but that is a real thing. But I also don't think that waters down the message. You're just simply protecting their information. That's all.
Agreed. Well, that, and there's also the aspect, which I came from the SaaS space. So it's like when you land a new client, you're want to put their logo everywhere. But in the MSP space, it's let's not tell everybody who manages your IT so that, we can put a target on our backs. So thank you for that. But I do have a question. Do you notice any difference in how a piece will perform based on being able to highlight a company completely and having to do it ghosted?
In my experience, I've never seen anything that would indicate, I don't have any actual data to say one piece of content outperformed another. I think, in my opinion, it's a message. I think it's what you're trying to get across, what you're trying to showcase. It's the solution itself. So, to me, the details aren't relevant unless that client was looking to use a referral, to get a reference from a company. For marketing collateral itself, it should be about the solution.
Okay, good to know, because that was the approach that now I'm okay, I think there's no other option than to move forward this way. So thank you for providing that, because I've never, just the sensitivity of the people, that's not something that I've dealt with in the past, and so wanted to know how you approached it in a professional way.
I think the other way you can do it, just Brianna, is that you can flip it in a sense. So if you wanted to give a tip about something, so the best way doesn't fit exactly, but the best way to avoid getting breached is to train your employees to do X, Y, and Z, right? So you can make that the headline, and then use your case study as filler in a sense.
Well, so and that's what I feel like that works, and I feel like we do a lot, of that type of stuff. Here's how you can do something. Here's a little bit of information on how you do it. But I feel like what what might be missing is some of these just like white pages, just case studies of people,
Yeah, I agree.
especially with some of the IT stuff, somebody wants, if you happen to write a case study on the exact pain that somebody's feeling, I
Yes,
feel like
exactly.
chances of getting them to come or fill out a form or opt in are a lot higher
Yeah.
in this
No, I
space.
think it's interesting because like if you study it since the beginning of time, the things that have been most persuasive in stories, of all sorts, right? So that's the good thing about a case study is if you write it
Exactly.
from the point of view of the person that's having the same pain, it's like the most effective stuff ever.
Totally. Yeah. And the storytelling aspect of things is, I you can learn it again. You relearn how important storytelling is as you continue
Yeah,
doing these type of things. So yes, trying to get it into a story format is exactly where
yeah.
we're at, and providing
And
other types of content.
that's what digital allows you to do better than analog ever did, in a sense, right? In the old days, analog, you had to write a book. In digital, you can do little TikToks, yeah, a little series of TikToks, right? But I think the other thing I want to ask Brittany is is there anything in your the thing you write in July, is that your 2022 plan or your 2023 plan?
Anything new you said?
Yeah, what's in your new plan? Anything new in your new plan that wasn't in your old plan?
Yeah, so one thing that's going to be new, and we've already dabbled in this because it's just we've had clients ask, is we are actually going to start offering our firm's clients marketing services. And it's because we've had business owners say, like, hey, can you help? And I've done
Oh, that's interesting.
some like, billable hour work for some of our clients before. But there's definitely a need with our target audience of business owners. A lot of them, again, are these privately held, so they just don't have marketing people there.
Hmm.
So I think the need is there. We're excited about it. We actually have the people to do it. That's one area that we're going to focus on. I think another area, we don't do a lot in video, primarily, again, bandwidth, people. Also, how do you do quality video with people at home? We're working through that. So we are working on a project right now to record for people to record videos in their home, send it to us. We're sending them ring lights, we're sending them AirPods, like we're giving them everything to do it, and to be successful with it. So I'm excited for us to kind of pick up on video content that we just don't have right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I was just curious, have you guys done a lot of direct mail?
Very little. We have one department in particular that focuses on employee owned, what's called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership program. If anybody's part of one, if you have an employee owned company, they have a list of 200 or so ESOP companies that we've done direct mailers to. Now, again, that's also a pre and post COVID. Before COVID, you could get them, you had an office number and you could send it to their office. Now, if you're sending something, you don't necessarily know if they're at the office or if they're at home. We have done direct mail pieces for attorneys that we know also, and a lot of them got bounced back because they weren't going to their offices. So yeah, that's up in the air. We don't do a lot of residential postcards. I have done that in my medical experience where we've sent postcards out about new physicians, and you can buy the zip code mailing list from the post office. Those have been successful. When you're trying to find businesses, it's just still that time where you just don't know where they are. Are they home or are they in the office?
Interesting. Can I ask you two other questions and then I'll shut up and let anybody else ask?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
Two is, what do you do specifically for clients? Anything that you do specifically for clients that's distinct from what you do for
my department? You mean marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah, aside from answering their marketing questions or helping them with giving our opinions on their marketing effort, our department will facilitate gifts for clients for if they win awards, if they're recognized. We did last year in this January, we sent them happy new tax year gifts, and we sent them edible arrangements, or I think cookies or something like that. So we do some of that. We also facilitate our NPS survey, so like our client satisfaction survey.
Yeah.
So that's something that puts us right and directly in front of the client.
Let me ask you one other question though, be quiet. So, by the way, Brianna, you guys should do client stuff if you're not doing it now. Yeah, it's not in Brian's brain science sometimes.
We like client gifting, is that what you're thinking, Brian?
Yeah,
Or Michael?
Client celebrations of some sort, yeah.
Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we do.
You do that?
We usually do it around the holidays, but we're actually in a big effort right now to figure out. We're thinking Arctic coolers, something for the summertime gift for all of our clients too. So yeah, he's always wanting to send everyone gifts, which is again not something I'm used to. My last CEO was like, why would I send them gifts?
In fact, I got one or two of them in my corner of my office that I didn't open up yet. Then the second thing I was going to say is, could you talk about like the databases? Like, are you in charge of like the whole Kahuna database for the firm?
That is a good question. So we do not have a CRM, and that is
wow, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of history even before I came to my firm. They've never had one since I've been here. So I think that's also like a bandwidth type issue, like literal and physical. So no, because we have, our firm has a massive program that handles all of our clients in terms of the work, like their tax work and all of that stuff. It does not talk for marketing. So we can't go in there and see, if they've subscribed to email addresses or, all of that stuff. So that's something that we have been pushing for, that we have been pressing. It's on our firm's list. It's just not a priority at this point, which we get it. Like the tax software has to work. That's what brings the money in. So, I mean, no, our database is our MailChimp email database. And that's about it.
No, it's interesting. I just wanted everybody to realize that everybody has I knew that was going to be the answer actually before I asked the question, because there's something about accounting firms that they're incredibly territorial over client information and who can contact whom and all that stuff. But so that's one problem we don't have as MSPs. So anybody else have? I actually, to be honest with you, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think it's kind of fun to get somebody who is just in an industry that we don't realize is actually quite parallel to ours, right? And seeing, go ahead.
Oh, I was just sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just wanted to make sure I said thank you to Marissa for bringing Brittany on today, because it's always just nice to talk about, marketing things.
Yeah. And I think I picked up a couple things too. I think the LinkedIn thing is worth us kind of staying focused on as a group. I also would encourage everybody who hasn't done it yet to go look at Apple Growth Partners. I'm sure it's applegrowthpartners.com or something like that. But sure, yeah, just take a look at the kind of the inventory of stuff they've done and how content heavy it is. I think is two things I'd like people to take away from this. And Brittany,
applegrowth.com. So, and follow us on LinkedIn, everywhere. We are on Instagram. I have a hard no on TikTok right now, but who knows?
Oh, I wouldn't go on TikTok from what I've seen.
No, that's I don't want to take a lot of business out there. First of all,
I have somebody for like recruitment asked my marketing specialist, like, hey, you guys should get on TikTok. And she, in the Gen Z, and she was like, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, thank God, because that's my answer. But I'm so like,
it truly is addictive, actually.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I have an Instagram, and I was like, I spend way too much time on this thing alone. It's not nearly as entertaining as TikTok is.
And you can tell TikTok's kind of pointless. Actually, the only thing that was interesting at it, they had some people from like the Ukraine that would get on and talk for like an hour or two. Just regular people, which that was kind of interesting to get that side of the story.
But it will be, I mean, off the cuff comment, interesting for me to think if that is how people get really used to like digesting their content, and if that's what people are looking for, the long-term effects on marketing it'll have is interesting to me.
That's kind of why I brought it up too, because it's literally I think a TikTok video is supposed to be 5 seconds or less.
I think there's a lot of physicians who have gained TikTok fandom because how they explain what's going on during COVID.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think about my days working in healthcare in hospitals. I mean, this was 15 years ago, wanted nothing. They didn't even want employees to be on Facebook just for fun, let alone for this. So I
Mhm.
agree with you. It'll evolve. I just say I laugh now and I'm like, absolutely not. Although I know I'm gonna have to do it. Like it's one of those things where you're like, it's
No,
inevitable.
it's
Well,
like it's kind of like understanding how communication is changing in this sense.
Well, and on top of that, I feel like as in a marketing role, granted, I'm relatively young, grew up in this age of like so much
Yeah.
information in front of your face, trying to where we're trying to combat that. I need a little bit more of your attention, and I need you to like kind of read what I'm posting, trying to create content that has that kind of a need in a world
Yeah.
where people are not used to looking at anything for more than 5 seconds. It's like, what do I do?
Yes.
Just have
Uh,
to have something really flashy,
Yeah.
like, it kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of that Super Bowl ad that had, it was that Bitcoin one or whatever, and it was like just the QR code bouncing around, and
yeah.
probably I think when I was watching it, I think the whole group I was with, we all looked at it for like 15 seconds, 20 seconds before we're like, does anyone want to like see where that goes?
Yeah.
And it managed to get our attention, but you have to do something that seems that
Uh,
off,
I
yeah, to
think
get your attention.
the next step up or step down from that, I guess, is if you get on YouTube, they have the ads that you can skip to, and
Mhm.
you look at how people are just trying to grab your attention and get like one kernel of information
Mhm.
embedded in your brain in 15 seconds. Like
Yeah.
that's totally
And then
different.
it's number of times, right? So then it's
Yeah,
like, no, now I just have to like make sure that my post is seen by the same person 10 times before they'll
that's a
even
good point.
click
I
my
never
link.
thought about it, Brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the repetition is kind of inherent in all those worlds, actually.
The week that I started at my firm, our two principals had been working on a video with a videographer before they hired me. And then like that was like my first project and they delivered it to me and it was 7.5 minutes long.
Oh
And they
gosh.
said, what do you think? And I said, it is 7 minutes and 20 seconds too long. And
Mhm.
I was like,
So I
and
got
I said, and I like laughed and I'm like, but I'm not joking. Like it actually is. And they were like
it.
blown away. And I said, 10 seconds max. And they're like, we've been working on this for months. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm here now. Like, but
Well,
that's
and
like when I see billboards, I see billboards that have all of this copy on it. And I'm like, you like why? Like 2 words, period. Like that's it. It just blows my
mhm.
mind.
Can I ask you what healthcare, which were you in the hospital system before for marketing?
Yeah, I was. Yep. So I was a director of marketing for that hospital system group of employed physicians, so the medical group.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's stay, whenever if you want to join us from time to time, maybe we'll have, a series of outside industry speakers sometime just to bounce ideas off. I think it's really good because I think because of the maturity of marketing in the accounting industry, it's kind of good to look at that as a role model for us. So thank you for spending your time and thanking
Oh,
for
I
being a
loved it.
good business partner
Yeah.
with Marissa. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah, thanks,
Marissa.
Brittany.
I appreciate it. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for participating. And again, thank you, Brittany. Good luck on closing on your house. That looks like the house you're moving out of behind you, I assume.
Oh yeah, can you tell that I have boxes and
Yeah,
I used to have like stuff on the wall.
I
So
was
yeah,
guessing. I was guessing your like the bare walls were indicative that you're getting ready to move out, actually.
yeah. I've had people be like, "Why are you so like echoey?" I'm like, "Cause there's nothing in this room." So
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
thanks.
soon.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.